I was carrying my bridesmaid dress in a garment bag when the caterer stopped me in the back hallway of the estate. She smiled and asked me politely where I should be seated for the rehearsal dinner. Before I could answer, I heard heels on the marble floor behind me. "She doesn't need a seat." The voice was smooth, like expensive perfume. My stepmother Vanessa appeared in a champagne satin dress, smiling the way she always smiled, like a queen who had already decided who mattered in every room. She looked at the caterer and waved toward the stack of linen napkins on the side table. "She arrived early, so she can make herself useful. Don't bother checking her against the family seating chart." The caterer's face went red. She looked at me, then quickly looked away. I stood very still, feeling something I had felt since I was 15, that old wound opening quietly in my chest, the one that never fully healed. I did not argue. I set down the garment bag. I picked up the napkins. I felt every pair of staff eyes on me. Then, from somewhere down the hallway, a clear voice rang out. "Why is everyone waiting? Where's Maria?" Vanessa's smile faltered. Just slightly. But I saw it. "My name is Maria Potter. I am 30 years old. My mother died when I was 11, and my father Thomas married Vanessa 2 years later. In the 15 years since, Vanessa treated me like something Thomas brought into the marriage by mistake, something she had been quietly trying to put away ever since." The voice belonged to Chloe. She was the bride and also my half-sister, the daughter Thomas and Vanessa had together. Chloe rushed into the hallway in a silk robe with her hair half-pinned, looking nervous and lovely all at once. She walked straight past Vanessa and took my hands. "Maria, thank God. They won't start the final walkthrough without you." The staff around us straightened immediately. Vanessa laughed, that practiced, airy sound she used to explain things away. "Maria was only helping with the linens," she said. Chloe looked confused. "Helping? Maria is the reason we have this venue." The hallway went completely silent. I kept my face calm. Inside, something shifted. Vanessa's eyes flashed a warning at me, sharp and fast, but Chloe was too anxious to catch it. She pulled me toward the east wing and said the venue coordinator needed my approval before guests could access the garden for tomorrow's ceremony. Vanessa caught my arm before I could follow Chloe and leaned close. "Do not embarrass me tonight," she whispered. "I didn't start this," I said, and walked away. In the estate office, the venue coordinator Mrs. Alden greeted me with genuine respect. She placed the authorization papers on the desk and explained carefully that the East Garden sat on protected historic grounds. My signature was required before any guests could use it. Chloe looked embarrassed. She had assumed Vanessa explained everything to the groom's family. Vanessa stepped in quickly. "It's just a formality. Maria likes to make things sound more important than they are." Mrs. Alden did not smile. "It is not a formality. Ms. Potter is the approving trustee for this event." Chloe turned to me, her mouth slightly open. I had never told her the full details because I did not want to overshadow her wedding. She had asked me months ago by email to approve the venue, writing that her mother would never ask me herself. The door opened. Daniel's mother Eleanor Westbrook walked in, polished, wealthy, and very sharp. She caught the last sentence and studied Vanessa briefly. Then she looked at me. "I think someone owes you an explanation," she said. When they brought me into the rehearsal dinner room, I noticed it immediately. The space was beautiful, candles, gold place cards, tall white flower arrangements. I walked the tables slowly and looked for my name. I found it near the kitchen entrance, beside the photographer's station and vendor badges. Even my bridesmaid listing had been removed from the printed program sitting on each chair. Chloe arrived beside me. Her face went pale. She said she had approved a completely different seating chart. Vanessa smoothly called it a printer mistake. But the event planner, standing nearby looking stiff, admitted Vanessa had personally delivered the final seating changes that very morning. This was not a mistake. Vanessa had planned deliberately to remove me from the family for the entire weekend. Daniel walked in and asked Chloe why she looked upset. Eleanor appeared behind him and answered before anyone else could. "Your future mother-in-law removed the venue trustee from the family table," she said simply. Daniel looked at me. It was a long, steady look, The kind that meant he was paying attention now and taking notes. A minute later, I found my own place card. It was folded and tucked beneath a stack of vendor badges, as though I was never meant to be seen at all. Vanessa pulled me into a side hallway before dinner and got straight to the point. "This weekend is not about you," she said. It never was. She told me I was jealous because Chloe was loved, celebrated, and easy to be proud of. Those exact words. Almost the same ones she had used when I was 15, the year my mother's photographs quietly disappeared from the living room walls. Then she said something that surprised me. She told me the Westbrook family believed the Potters were well connected and financially strong. She had spent months carefully building that image. She had told them she secured the estate venue through family influence and connections. If the truth came out, that I quietly approved everything and Vanessa had no real control here, her entire image would fall apart in front of Daniel's watchful, observant family. I understood it clearly then. This wedding was not only Chloe's celebration. It was Vanessa's performance. Every detail she changed, every name she removed, every plan she altered, all of it was designed to keep her version of the family looking whole and complete. "You will not ruin my daughter's wedding," she said. I looked at her steadily. "Then stop using it to erase me." That night I sat alone in the estate library. The room smelled like old paper and wood polish and reminded me of my grandmother Beatrice, who used to read to me in the green chair by the window on Sunday mornings. After my mother died, Thomas married Vanessa within 2 years. She moved into the house and began slowly moving me out, not with one big moment, but with many small, careful ones. Family portraits changed. Holiday cards stopped including me. My mother's things went into storage boxes Thomas never opened again. Whenever I said something, Thomas told me Vanessa was still adjusting and I needed to be mature. So I became mature. I kept things smooth. Chloe had adored me when she was small. But Vanessa trained her carefully over the years to see me as complicated and inconvenient. Beatrice was the only one who noticed. She would take my hand and say, "Never beg for a place in a house your blood helped build." She left me something when she died, not flashy money, but quiet, legal control over parts of the family estate. A trustee role no one could remove from me. I opened my phone and reread an old email from Chloe, sent 7 months ago. "Please approve the venue. Mom will never ask you herself." Chloe found me in the library around 9. She sat across from me without speaking for a moment. Then she started to cry. She said she had known I helped with the venue. But she did not know Vanessa planned to humiliate me. She said Vanessa told her I preferred staying behind the scenes and did not want any attention or credit. I told her the truth. I never asked to be hidden. I stayed quiet because I loved her and did not want her wedding to become a war between her mother and her sister. Chloe pressed her hands over her face. Then she told me things I had not known. Vanessa had been controlling every detail of the wedding for months. Which relatives could speak, which family photos would be taken, which parts of my mother's family were quietly excluded from invitations. Then she said something that dropped the floor out from under me. That morning, without telling Chloe, Vanessa had removed me from the ceremony procession. She had crossed my name off the order of events and told the planner it was a last-minute change from the family. Chloe's voice was barely above a whisper. "I think my mom is afraid of what people will see if you stand beside me." I went back to the bridal suite to get my garment bag. It was gone. A junior assistant said Vanessa had ordered it moved to vendor storage because I was not part of the official bridal party. I found it near a catering trolley. Coffee had spilled across the front panel. The stain was deep and the fabric badly wrinkled. The timing was too clean for an accident. Chloe wanted to confront Vanessa right then. I stopped her. I was not going to let Vanessa make Chloe look unstable the night before her wedding. Instead I called a seamstress named Paula who worked with the estate's charity events committee. She arrived within the hour. While she treated the fabric, she mentioned casually that Vanessa had called her 2 weeks earlier to cancel my dress fitting entirely. I kept my voice even and asked Paula to send me every message Vanessa had left her about the dress. She did. The stain was not impulsive. The cancelled fitting was not a mistake. Vanessa had been working at this long before the weekend started. She had been planning to remove me piece by piece, And she had started with the dress I would need to stand beside Chloe. Daniel found me outside the ballroom before 10 and apologized quietly for what had happened at the seating table. Then he told me what Vanessa had been telling his family for months. She said I lived far away and was not close to Chloe. She said I did not want to participate much in family events. She also told Eleanor that I had financial troubles and could not be trusted with important wedding details. I almost laughed at the sharp irony of it. I, who had signed the authorization papers that made the entire weekend legally possible. But I did not laugh. I listened carefully. Then Daniel told me something that made everything fall into place. His family had planned to make a generous donation toward estate restoration after the wedding. A meaningful amount. They had been told Vanessa was the right person to manage it on the Potter family's behalf. Something cold moved through me. Vanessa had used my estate connection to impress the Westbrooks and had positioned herself to receive money connected to property she had no legal right to represent or control. Daniel leaned against the wall. "Before I marry into this family tomorrow," he said, "I need to know what is actually real." My father Thomas found me in the garden near midnight. He looked like a man who had been choosing comfort over honesty for so long that he had forgotten what honesty felt like. He told me Vanessa was wrong, but asked me to let it go until after the wedding. Chloe deserved one perfect day. I looked at him. Did I deserve one decent seat? He looked away. That silence hurt more than anything Vanessa had done all evening. Vanessa made the insult. Thomas allowed it, again and again, year after year, by deciding that keeping peace with her was worth whatever it cost me. I asked him directly. Did he know she removed me from the family table? Did he know she took me out of the bridal procession? He admitted Vanessa said it would reduce tension. He had not challenged her. He was not deceived. He knew. He chose quiet. Something settled inside me, not anger, but a final understanding. I looked at my father and said the truest thing I had ever said to him. You didn't lose me because Vanessa pushed me out. You lost me because you kept opening the door for her. Eleanor Westbrook invited me for tea in a private sitting room upstairs. The room was warm and still, lit by a single lamp. She sat straight and looked at me the way perceptive people look at things, without rushing toward a conclusion. She said wealthy families often hid ugly things behind nice flower arrangements, and she wanted to know whether her son was walking into a family that used people as tools. I was careful. I did not gossip. I told her only what directly affected the wedding, that I had approved the venue as trustee, that Vanessa had altered the seating without Chloe's knowledge, and that important things had been misrepresented to the Westbrook family. Eleanor nodded slowly. She respected that I did not dramatize it. Then she slid a printed email across the table. Vanessa had contacted the Westbrook estate manager about routing their wedding gift through something called a Potter Family Restoration Fund. The instructions said the fund was controlled by Vanessa personally. I read the email twice. I knew every account connected to our family trust. That fund did not exist anywhere in the trust documents. Eleanor watched my face carefully. I thought you should see what your stepmother asked us to sign, she said. The next morning I met with Mrs. Alden and Mr. Price, the trust accountant, before the wedding preparations began. They reviewed the email and confirmed what I already suspected. Vanessa had no authority to request donations connected to the estate in any form. The email sounded like a warm family request, not a fraud. But it was designed to move real money into an account Vanessa controlled alone. I refused to accuse her without giving her one chance to explain. I asked Mrs. Alden to pause all donor paperwork until a formal review could be completed. That protected the Westbrooks, the estate, and Chloe's wedding from any financial scandal. Vanessa found out within 20 minutes. She walked into the estate office with her jaw tight. She said I had no idea what I was doing. She said wealthy families helped each other and I was too small-minded to understand. I asked her one question. Where would the donation have gone, Vanessa? For the first time, she had no polished answer ready. The words did not come quickly the way they always did. She stood there, unable to locate the right sentence. You have no idea what you just cost me, she finally whispered. At the welcome cocktail event, Vanessa moved to the center of the room like she owned it. She gave a long, graceful speech about motherhood, sacrifice, and the private difficulty of blended families. Her voice trembled in exactly the right places at exactly the right moments. She never said my name. She did not need to. Every sentence was aimed at me like an arrow wearing silk. Some people mistake kindness for weakness, she said, glancing briefly toward where I was standing at the edge of the room, and generosity for entitlement. Chloe looked trapped. Daniel looked angry. Thomas studied the floor. Several guests glanced toward me with pity or careful curiosity. Vanessa had done exactly what she needed, planted quiet doubt about me before any truth could take root. She was making the audience choose sides before the evidence came out. I did not interrupt. I let her finish every word. Then I picked up my glass. I stepped forward slowly, keeping my voice easy and warm, as though I was simply continuing a pleasant conversation from where it had been left. Since we're speaking about family, I said, I'd like to take a moment to thank the person who made this beautiful place possible. The room waited. I spoke about my grandmother Beatrice. I kept it honest and simple. I told them about a woman who loved this estate deeply and believed it should be used for real family moments, not performances, but genuine ones. I said I had approved Chloe's use of it because Chloe once told me in a private email that she had dreamed of marrying here since she was a little girl. Several guests smiled. Some nodded slowly. They were beginning to understand what I was and what I was not. Then I said one sentence I had not planned. It came from somewhere quiet and steady inside me, and I said it calmly. I believed helping in silence was enough. Tonight I am learning that silence can let the wrong people take credit for love they never gave. No one moved for a moment. Vanessa's smile was tight and careful, the kind that meant she was calculating how much damage had just been done. After the toast, 3 of my mother's relatives approached me one by one. Then one aunt, my mother's younger sister, touched my arm and said something that broke something open inside me very quietly. Honey, we didn't stay away. We were kept away. I asked the wedding planner for the original guest list the next morning and compared it line by line against the final approved version. Entire sections of my mother's family were gone. People who knew Beatrice personally, people who carried stories about the estate and my mother that Chloe had never been allowed to hear. The planner told me Vanessa said those relatives would make the wedding feel messy and too connected to the old family. The old family. My mother. That was how Vanessa described her, a problem, a category, a chapter that should stay closed. I felt the insult down to my bones. Vanessa had not just tried to erase me. She had tried to erase my mother from a place that existed because of my grandmother's trust. She had wiped my family from the history of a space my blood helped protect. I called the excluded relatives myself. Several were staying nearby and agreed to come quietly to the ceremony, not to cause trouble, but to stand behind Chloe and me. That afternoon, as the first relatives arrived at the estate gates, Vanessa appeared and told security not to let them through. Mrs. Alden stepped forward before the guard could act. They are on Ms. Potter's approved family access list, she said clearly. On the morning of the wedding, Vanessa cornered me in one of the dressing rooms. She closed the door. Her voice dropped to the real one, low and sharp, the version she kept beneath the polished surface. She told me I had always been the ghost of the first wife. She said every time Thomas looked at me he saw a life she could never fully replace. She had wanted this wedding to prove, once and for all, that Chloe was the real Potter daughter and Maria was simply history. I finally understood what had always driven her. It was not only control. It was jealousy of a woman who had been dead for 19 years, and fear that as long as I existed close to Thomas and the estate, Vanessa's place would always feel uncertain. So she had spent 15 years trying to make me disappear. She threatened to make Thomas choose publicly if I continued. He already chose, I said. That's why we're here. The door opened. Paula arrived with my bridesmaid dress, cleaned, pressed, and perfectly restored. Vanessa looked at it. Something shifted behind her eyes. Then Chloe walked in behind her and said, without hesitation, Maria is walking with me. Chloe said it without apology. She wanted me in the bridal suite, in the family photos, and in the procession. She had decided. Vanessa told her that changing plans on the wedding morning would confuse everyone. Chloe looked at her mother. No. You confusing everyone is what got us here. Thomas moved to calm things down. Chloe turned to him before he could speak and asked directly why he had let Vanessa treat me that way for so many years. He had nothing to say. I stepped forward quietly and told Chloe I did not want her spending her wedding morning fighting on my behalf out of guilt. She looked at me and said it was not guilt. It was true. There was a difference. Then she opened her small jewelry bag and took out a bouquet charm, a silver circle with a tiny photograph inside. 2 faces. Beatrice. And my mother. She said she had planned to carry it herself. Now she wanted me to hold it beside her as we walked. My throat tightened. I took it from her hands carefully. Behind us, Vanessa stood very still, watching both daughters leave the room together. Her strategy, to divide us and keep us separate, had quietly and completely failed. 20 minutes before the ceremony, a new crisis arrived. The estate's insurance coordinator found Mrs. Alden and said the East Garden could not be opened. Someone had filed a report claiming an unauthorized change in venue permissions. If unresolved, the ceremony would have to move indoors to a smaller backup space. Vanessa stood nearby wearing a shocked expression. But her eyes were steady and practiced. I asked to see the report. The tech manager checked the filing logs. The report had been submitted from a device connected to the bridal suite Wi-Fi network overnight. I did not say Vanessa's name aloud. Instead, I provided the signed authorization papers I had completed with Mrs. Alden days earlier, along with every supporting document. Mrs. Alden confirmed the permissions directly. The garden opened on schedule. The whole disruption lasted 11 minutes. But Daniel had been watching. He walked quietly to the tech manager and asked him to preserve all access logs from the overnight period. The manager nodded and made a note. The preparations continued. Chloe never knew how close her dream had come to collapsing. Vanessa stood in the front row smoothing her dress, looking satisfied. She did not yet know her final move had left a clear trail behind it. The ceremony began. I walked ahead of Chloe with the bouquet charm held carefully in my left hand. As I came down the aisle, I heard whispers ripple through the seated guests, people who had been at the cocktail event, people piecing the story together. At the altar, the officiant paused. A family blessing had been scheduled before the vows. Everyone turned toward the front row. Vanessa began to rise. Chloe's voice came from behind me. Clear and calm. Why is everyone looking at Mom? Maria is giving the family a blessing. 240 people turned to look at me. Vanessa sat back down. The color drained from her face completely. Chloe stepped to the microphone herself and spoke about what she had clearly been turning over in her mind all weekend. She said the estate, the family history, and the reason everyone stood in that garden on a beautiful morning connected back to one person's quiet, steady kindness. I had not known she planned this. No one told me. I stepped forward. I pressed my hand over the charm with the 2 photographs inside and began to speak. Behind me, Vanessa sat in silence, unable to move, unable to manage any of it, unable to stop it from unfolding exactly as it should. The reception started warmly. Chloe and Daniel were married. Guests laughed and danced, and the estate filled with happiness that felt real and unmanaged for the first time all weekend. Vanessa found me during the photo session. She offered a short, controlled apology, said emotions ran high at weddings, mothers made mistakes, I should understand. Her eyes were careful the whole time. I did not accept it. I did not reject it. I told her we would deal with the rest after dinner. Her eyes flickered, but she nodded and stepped away. Thomas asked me for a dance. We moved slowly at the edge of the floor. He said he had failed me and did not know how to fix it. I could feel the old part of me, the 15-year-old who had wanted her father's love more than anything, lean toward him just slightly. Then Daniel appeared at the edge of the dance floor. He was pale. He looked at me over Thomas's shoulder with an expression that said whatever he had found was worse than he expected. The song ended. Daniel stepped forward and spoke quietly, low enough that only I could hear him. Maria, he said, the access logs came back. We went to a private room off the main hall, Daniel, Chloe, and me. Daniel laid the printed logs flat on the table between us. The report that nearly shut down the East Garden that morning, filed anonymously, timed perfectly to force the ceremony indoors, had come from Vanessa's tablet. The device ID was recorded clearly in the system. There was no room for error or misreading. Chloe stared at the paper without speaking. Then she looked up slowly. She tried to shut down her own daughter's ceremony, she said. Not a question. She sat with that for a long, quiet moment. Then the wedding planner knocked and entered, pale and tight-lipped. She turned her laptop toward us. A second email sat in the outbox, scheduled to send automatically to guests and vendors the next morning. The subject line read, "Concerns regarding Maria Potter." It claimed I had caused financial and legal complications throughout the planning process. Vanessa had arranged a final reputation attack, timed to fire after the wedding ended when there would be nothing I could publicly do about it. I asked the planner to cancel the scheduled email and preserve it as evidence immediately. Chloe wiped her eyes carefully. "I want everyone to know," she said quietly. "Not tomorrow. Tonight." During the dinner speeches, Vanessa moved before anyone expected her to. She took the microphone from the DJ stand before the planner could signal us, and her voice came out trembling and soft, perfectly rehearsed. She told the room she had been deeply misunderstood all weekend. She said stepmothers were always judged unfairly. She said she had given everything she had for her family. Then she pivoted. She said certain people had used Chloe's wedding to settle old grievances. She said she only wanted to protect her daughter from those who turned love into control. She delivered that final line in my direction. It was her last move and she knew it. Chloe stood. She was still in her wedding dress. The whole room turned toward her. She walked to the microphone and quietly, clearly asked her mother to stop. Vanessa kept talking. Chloe's voice came out steady and final. "Then why did you try to stop my ceremony?" Every sound in the room disappeared instantly. Daniel stood from his chair and carried the printed access logs directly to Chloe. He placed them in her hands in full view of every guest sitting at every table. Vanessa watched him cross the floor and could not find a single word to say before Chloe began to read aloud. Chloe did not raise her voice. She read only what mattered. The garden shutdown report came from Vanessa's tablet that morning. The reputation attack email was scheduled from Vanessa's account to send the next day. Maria's removal from the family table and bridal procession had both been ordered by Vanessa directly, in writing, to the planner. The planner confirmed her piece from across the room. Mrs. Alden confirmed hers. Paula confirmed hers. 3 independent people, each telling one part of the same truth in front of everyone. Vanessa turned toward Thomas. She had done this across their whole marriage. When things fell apart, she looked to Thomas and he steadied her. Thomas stood. He looked at her for a long, still moment. "Vanessa," he said. "Enough." The room shifted in a way I had never felt before. For the first time in 15 years, Thomas did not stand between Vanessa and what she had done. I spoke last. I said this was a deliberate, planned attempt to erase me and my mother's memory from a space our family built together. Eleanor's voice came from across the room. "Any restoration gift from our family goes through the estate trust. Not through you, Vanessa." Vanessa understood. She had lost the money, the room, and the story, all at once. After the reception ended, we gathered in a private estate office. Chloe, Daniel, Thomas, Vanessa, Eleanor, Mrs. Alden, and the trust accountant sat together. The room held the kind of quiet that comes when something real is finally being settled. I did not come asking for punishment. I came asking for corrections. I listed them plainly. Vanessa would send written corrections to every vendor and family member she had misled. Thomas would formally acknowledge my trustee role in writing. The fake restoration fund request would be fully withdrawn. My mother's relatives would be restored to the family contact list. Vanessa would have no future role in managing any estate event. Vanessa called me cruel and said I was punishing Chloe by tearing apart the family on her own wedding night. I looked at her and said the truest thing I could. Cruel was calling me for help in a house my grandmother trusted me to protect. Thomas signed first. Vanessa refused, until Eleanor stated clearly that the Westbrooks would have no financial dealings with the Potters while Vanessa was misrepresenting family matters. Vanessa signed. I walked out and found Chloe waiting in the hallway with her shoes off and her veil loose, crying, not because the wedding was ruined, but because the truth had finally survived her mother. Months later, I hosted a small dinner at the estate. Not grand, just a warm table, real food, and the people who had earned their place at it. Chloe and Daniel came. My mother's relatives came. Thomas came, quieter than I had ever known him. Vanessa was not there. Her influence had collapsed the moment people were allowed to see clearly. She had stepped back from all estate matters. I had accepted a larger formal role in the trust. My name appeared on documents the way it always should have, visible and official, not hidden while someone else took the credit. I oversaw community events, family gatherings, and charitable programs. I did it openly. During dinner, Chloe raised her glass and said I had saved more than the wedding. I had saved the truth of the family. Thomas apologized quietly. He did not ask me to forgive Vanessa. He only said he should have protected his daughter. I told him healing would take time and respect would have to be proven, not promised. After dinner, I walked through the same hallway where Vanessa called me for help. The staff greeted me by name. Chloe called from the dining room. "Maria, we're waiting for you." I smiled, not because I finally had their permission to belong, but because I no longer needed it.